Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Sound Family Dwelling. My name is Chris Angel, your co-host, here with Mark Jacobsen, your host. Mark, how are you today?
Oh, good. Hey, how are you, Chris?
Good. It's like we're in a mobile office or something today.
Yeah, I'm a little bit mobile today. I'm kind of on location.
On location. That's good.
Yeah,
You're doing the work of an active real estate agent. I love it.
yeah, that's right. Yeah,
It's good. It's nice to know you're actually in the field doing the work.
yeah. There's always stuff to do. And today was one of those days I had to be out doing it.
Yeah, well, way to make it work.
Yeah.
So what's our topic today?
Well, I thought we last time we went over the first page of the contract, and so now I want to start going into some of the addendum, addenda, and the contingencies. And I wanted to start out with one that's a default addendum for me in any deal that I write up.
Yep.
And that's called the Optional Clauses Addendum.
Yes.
And that covers a bunch of little basic things that are really important. So I just wanted to go through those really quickly and touch on, what they are and what each of those things mean.
Yeah.
This is one of those addenda that I think gets overlooked, and especially if you're a buyer and or a seller, it might not be stuff that you would think about. So I want to just point out some of these things.
Yeah, let's do it. I always remember using optional clauses when I remember it well. So
yeah,
I thought it was important. Let's start going through it.
Okay, cool. It looks like this.
Yes. Oh,
right?
yes.
Really, really fun.
Yes. It's beautiful.
Contracty looking thing. So anyway, obviously has the name of the buyer and the seller and the address and the ever important date of the contract that we talked about the last time.
Right.
Then the first checkbox here is called square footage, lot size, and encroachments. Mm-hmm. And this is actually more for your broker and in other words, the buyer's broker and the selling broker. Basically, it states that the brokers make no representations concerning the lot size or accuracy of the information provided by the seller, and that the buyer needs to do their due diligence in having that information verified, which they can do through the inspection. Yeah. And also the appraiser, generally speaking, will do some measurements of the home. So there are various things that a buyer can do to verify the accuracy of that information. But
so if I'm on Zillow and it says, or I'm on somebody's website searching property and I see this house and I go look at it and the website said it was a quarter acre, it was 0.25 acres. And then I close on the house and I find out that it wasn't 0.25 acres. This particular thing is saying like, hey, you can't come back to the buyer's broker or the seller's broker and say like your information is wrong.
Right. You'd have to go to the seller and a lot of times the seller would have something that also protects them as well.
Makes sense because, like for brokers to start getting in the business of doing lot line, surveys and figuring out like, well, what is the accuracy of the property is like, I mean, the buyer really needs to go do that work.
That's right. Yeah. And that's why there are surveys out there and surveyors.
Yeah.
So, there's lots of different ways that a buyer and or seller, for that matter, can get that information confirmed and verified.
Right.
Okay.
Good. Okay.
So the next line item is regarding title insurance. And you can choose to pick standard owner's coverage or extended coverage. And 99% of the time it's going to be just standard coverage. You'd only do extended coverage if there were some, I've never had to, so I'm really not an expert in it, but there'd have to be extenuating circumstances.
I feel like older properties, like really old properties, sometimes, the title's been around longer. So sometimes things could sneak up on an older property where who knows? Who knows what was on it, but
something built in 1892.
Yeah.
Over 100 years ago. That coverage, title insurance covers things that may still be on title that are not found on title. Mm-hmm. In other words, right? So extended coverage just provides extra coverage for that.
Right. Yep.
Okay, but most time standard
Yeah.
coverage is just fine.
Yep.
Okay. The next one, seller cleaning. Okay. This, if you check that box, that's telling the seller, hey, we want you to make sure that the interiors are cleaned and that you remove all trash and debris and everything from the property before we take possession of it.
Yeah.
Okay. So most of the time, that's perfectly normal to check that box and everybody's fine with it. What would be a circumstance where that would not work?
Yeah, probably a hot market maybe, where the seller's like, I got 5 other buyers lined up who aren't asking me to clean my house.
Yeah, so you're very true on that. And the other thing is, if it's an investment property and the seller no longer lives in the state or the country and they have no means to get it cleaned.
Oh, that's
And
interesting.
it's been, it's been vacated and perhaps vacant for a while.
Yeah.
More of an you take it as is type of thing. So
got it.
Most of the time, you check that box and the seller's going to clean it before they leave. But, there's certainly circumstances where that would not be applicable.
Or like we saw back in the recession where like it was an REO, a bank owned home. Banks didn't do hardly anything for.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I'm glad you brought that up. So bank's not going to hire a cleaner.
No. Nope.
Okay.
Yeah.
And next one is somewhat related, and that's regarding personal property. So when you buy a house, you want to make sure that the seller just doesn't leave you all their junk.
Yeah.
So you check that box that ensures that the seller removes everything that they own from the house.
Right.
One of the stipulations there is that if the seller does not remove anything, that item automatically becomes yours. So, you hear these stories where people find these valuable paintings in attics and things like that were from, a seller or 2 or 3 sellers ago. Well, if the seller didn't remove it, that item becomes yours as soon as the house closes.
Right.
Okay. So that's the personal property. The next line is utilities. I'm just going to read this one, so bear with me. It says, to the best of seller's knowledge, seller represents that the property is connected to water, so public water, public sewer, septic tank, or well water. So they have to check which one it is. And then if it's agricultural land, if there's irrigation water provided. And then you get into natural gas, telephone, cable, electricity, and then there's an other box for any other type of utility. Around most areas here, it would be something like propane tank instead of gas heat.
Yeah.
So that there's a propane tank on the property that provides gas energy. Now, this is just saying what utilities are connected to the property. In addition to that, I just want to take a little bit of a tangent over to this is also a fun looking form, right?
Yes, utilities, so fun.
These forms are so fun, you guys, everybody. So anyway, the utilities identification form that you should put in every offer as well. And I'll explain why here in a second. But anyway, this one lists off, this is where the seller lists what the actual utility companies are for each of those utilities.
Nice.
So water, sewer, irrigation, garbage, electricity, gas, and then anything else that might be special. Now, what this form also does is it tells escrow to make sure that all of these accounts are paid off at closing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
That gives buyers and sellers a lot of peace of mind that everybody's starting fresh. It's a clean slate on utilities once you close on the house and move in. Okay. That's a separate addendum, and both should be included. Okay, so if it's new construction, then the next line is regarding installation. So the builder would, you check that off, and the builder would fill out what type of installation is on the property.
This is back on the optional clauses now, right?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We're back on the
Yep.
optional clauses. Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
If the seller is leasing anything that goes with the property, then that's what the next section is for, the next little line item. Lease property. I mentioned propane tank earlier, so sometimes
sure.
propane tanks, they're leased. So they say, okay, this is leased. Other applicable things would be like a security system or satellite dish or some other type of equipment.
Right. Yeah.
So anyway, watch for that. Then, and now we're on page 2 of the optional clauses addendum, and we get into where there's a homeowners association. So if there's a homeowners association, you check this box that gives you a certain amount of time to review the CCNRs of in other words, the rules of the association,
Yeah.
all the covenants and regulations, etc., of the association for that neighborhood to make sure that you're cool with it. I listed a couple of homes in the neighborhood and this year, and there was a buyer that came through and wanted to buy one of the homes, and they reviewed the CCNRs or the codes and regulations, and they found out that you could only have 2 dogs per household in this neighborhood. They have 3, so that was not going to work for them. So that's an opportunity for you to look and make sure that your lifestyle and your needs are going to be conducive to what that neighborhood will allow you to do.
Nice.
Another thing, getting away from pets, something that may be more applicable to a lot of people is you go to the house, you review it, you see it, you want to make an offer on it, but you notice that there's not a fence enclosing the property. Well, certain associations won't allow a fence to enclose the entire property. So you want to put a fence up, you need to make sure that the association would allow you to do that. So things like that.
Some associations are really strict some are loose and some are really strict. I've known there's somewhere like you can't plant a tree without trying to get it, aesthetic things. You can't paint your house a certain color that doesn't go by the color palette of the association. Like there's some crazy stuff. So
and it's not, and there's only certain kinds of trees you can plant, right? in some associations, you know, so it's not just anything.
Right.
Next one is regarding the homeowners association transfer fee.
Okay.
Generally speaking, the seller's going to pay for that, and so you check that box, and it defaults to the seller paying for it. But again, in a hot market, if you want to put your offer a little bit over the edge of the others, you can check buyer pays for that transfer fee, and the transfer fees are usually $100 to $400. It depends on the association. I mean, and there's give or take on that even, but most of them are right around $250 or $300.
Got it.
Okay. Then you have excluded items. So it says the following items that would otherwise be included in the sale of the property is excluded from the sale. Seller shall repair any damage to the property caused by the removal of the excluded items. So what would these excluded items be? Well, it might be an appliance. It could be perhaps some sort of hookup to something that's on the outside of the property. I mean, I don't know why that they would do that, but an RV hookup or a shed that is affixed to the ground that they want to take with them for some reason.
Right.
Whatever it could be. That's really rare that this is applicable, but it's there. And so if you come across a property where there is something that you would want removed, or the seller is demanding that it's removed, you check that box, and that requires the seller to repair any damage that's done to the home, to the structure, or to the property when they do remove that.
Nice.
Okay.
Yep.
Next line is home warranty. You see that checked off a lot in new construction where the builder provides a home warranty, but you as a seller can offer a home warranty to a buyer for your home that's 30, 40 years old if you want to.
Sure.
Those are just $200 or $300 for a home warranty. They're usually just for a year.
And they cover what?
They cover minor things.
Like the systems of the house, right? Like they cover Some appliances, HVAC, plumbing,
Yep.
I think, right?
Yep. Stuff like that. So,
Great.
it's a nice little thing to offer as a seller. In a
Yeah,
hot market, you don't really need to, but maybe you want to
sure.
uh, you know encourage a buyer to take your home,
Yeah,
or to accept your price.
right.
Uh,
Yeah, good point. Hmm.
yeah. So, and then the next section is other, where you can just write in any other things.
Yeah, what would you see on that
Yeah.
typically? What would people write in?
Well, mostly what I see there are relationship disclosures.
Oh, okay.
So yeah,
Sure.
between an agent and their client.
Like
Um,
the agent is a relative of the seller or something like that.
that's right. Yeah.
Things like that, right?
Um, or if the buyer or the seller is an agent themselves,
Right.
or if
Okay.
they have a vested interest in a company that's being employed by to close the transaction or to do something in the transaction,
Got it.
the inspection or the escrow company or something like that.
Yeah.
Got another example of that, I guess, is a seller that I'm working with who's the actual builder of the homes that they're selling, and they get a volume discount at the escrow company. So we put in there that it's disclosed that they get a volume discount at the escrow company for their escrow fees,
Hmm.
and that the buyer will pay the normal fee. So stuff
Got
like
it.
that.
Okay.
Yeah. But
Awesome.
anyway, that's optional clauses.
Optional clauses, the
Yeah.
infamous, the one and only. Man, those are
Yeah.
beautiful pages.
Yeah. And I think, like I said, this is a default addendum in every deal that I write up,
Hmm.
because all these things are things that you just don't think about necessarily, and they're
Yeah.
often overlooked, but they're so important
Yep.
that you have these things addressed in your contract.
Yeah. So good.
Okay?
I like it, Mark.
Yeah.
It's good, man. I like that you're walking us through the contract. I think a lot of people will sit down and to buy a house and fill out forms, and they don't really read through them. Like, they don't really know what they're signing or what they're reading. That's not true for everybody, but I do think some
Yeah.
people will sit down and they're hoping that their agent is doing the right paperwork. But I like that you're taking us through it. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's
You
good.
bet.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited
Cool.
for another episode in the books.
Sure. Yeah. If anybody has questions about this, just send me an email at seattlehomes2010@gmail.com or
Nice.
soundfamilydwelling@gmail.com.
Awesome.
And I'd be happy to talk to you more about it.
Awesome. And
All right.
Mark, you'll meet with buyers and sellers just to talk about sort of what their next steps are, whether they decide to buy or sell or not. Is
Yeah.
that correct?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, a lot of what we do is consulting,
Right.
right? So definitely.
Yeah. It's a no
Yeah.
obligation, like reach out to Mark, get a hold of him if you're thinking about buying or selling, just to kind of figure out what next steps
Yeah.
are.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I enjoy the relationship part of the business. So, it'd be fun just to talk and get together.
Awesome.
Okay.
Awesome, Mark. Thanks, Mark. We'll see you in the next episode.
All right. Thank you.